Over 100 years ago, a young stonemason, Bonfilio Perini, immigrated to the United States from Milan, Italy. Alone or in partnership with other contractors, Bonfilio concentrated on labor-intensive projects in the Northeast. In 1918, he incorporated as Perini and Sons.
Well into its second century, it is fitting to look back, to reflect on the achievements of Perini people, and to relate the past to the potential of the future.
At the turn of the century, Bonfilio Perini, like most Americans, was optimistic and self-confident. America was a well-fount of opportunities. In addition to the contracting business, which provided financial security for his growing family, Bonfilio, ever the entrepreneur, imported ceramic tiles from Italy and invested in the first talking pictures.
Oh, that we two are laying down the stream of a soft spring breeze.
But remaining true to his nature and talents, he found that construction provided lasting satisfaction. He had an established following of Italian craftsmen who traveled with him throughout the Northeast. He recognized the value of establishing partnerships with other contractors who had skills that complemented his own. And he looked beyond the horses and tip carts that were the traditional earth-moving method of the day to steam-driven mechanized equipment that would revolutionize the construction industry. The construction of water supply systems for the cities of New York and Boston provided great opportunities for Bonfilio and his partners. From 1910 through 1912, Bonfilio subcontracted as the partnership of Perini Senadella on the construction of the Ashokan Reservoir in the Catskill Mountains, 50 miles south of Albany, New York. The company's responsibilities included setting in place riprap along the dam and building spectacular bluestone walls. Bob Studing, historian and professor of philosophy and English at Ulster County Community College in Stone Ridge, New York, has researched the construction of the reservoir and reflects on the craftsmanship of Perini's efforts.
It seems like the craftsmanship was great in addition to the magnitude of it. You know, we're talking about maybe 20 miles of stone walls and possibly on and off of maybe 2 to 5.5 miles of riprapping. You know, that's a majestic project when you think about it, a giant piece of sculpture. But I think, too, in terms of the craftsmanship, if someone in the area could have done it, they would have been hired to do it. You know, so undoubtedly Winston, who was the contractor from Virginia, who built the dam and the dikes and so on, he probably wanted to hire the best. And undoubtedly, this man had the reputation at that time for doing this kind of work, and he did it well. And it's lasted.
Bonfilio's partnerships also built many roadways and related projects. In 1917, faced with either the prospect of walking away from a job unfinished or paying inflated wages brought on by World War I, Bonfilio risked bankruptcy in order to meet payroll on several contracts. Perhaps it was an immigrant's pride, but he would not compromise his reputation for dependability. His word was his bond. Through example, Bonfilio Perini taught his children and employees to seek challenges that others might find too uncertain or strenuous. He had the character to accept disappointment with the confidence that the future held more promising opportunities. When Bonfilio died in 1924, Perini and Sons had a net worth of $25,000. In honor of their father, his children renamed the company B. Perini and Sons. They assumed management roles that reflected their personal interests and talents. Joseph, at age 25, was treasurer, and Louis, 21, president. Daughter Ida was secretary. The youngest of the brothers, Charlie, joined the company later and became vice president in charge of equipment. Their first objective was to do $1 million worth of business in a year. They realized that goal in 1926. To take on larger and more difficult jobs, the young Perinis needed the trust and confidence of financial backers. Operating from their offices atop a general store in Ashland, Massachusetts, they signed their first single $1 million contract to construct a stretch of the Boston to Worcester Turnpike in 1930. The use of side discharge trucks and an innovative high-speed spreader enabled the company to set new world paving records, which received national attention within the industry. To facilitate repairs to equipment and to accommodate the growing number of Perini employees, the company took up residence in a factory owned by the American Record Company at 73 Mount Wade Avenue in Framingham. The war years found much of the manpower and equipment of B. Perini and Sons at work throughout the coal belt states, on army camps and highway projects. In 1942, Lou Perini and his family moved to Chambersburg, Pennsylvania, to supervise the construction of the Letterkenny Ordnance Depot, the company's first $10 million contract. Government work assured the availability of spare parts for the equipment fleet, and it provided new opportunities in related fields. Wartime shortages of coal and the ready adaptation of construction equipment prompted the company to enter the coal fields of Pennsylvania, West Virginia, Kentucky, and Tennessee. Although a slumping market later forced suspension of the operations, this brief but highly successful venture was testimony to the company's versatility. Following the war, the company was poised for diversification. Still considered by many as a New England road builder, the company began to develop capabilities in all types of construction operations. Projects for which the company was responsible, alone or in joint venture, continued to grow in complexity and size. Many were the first, the largest, the longest, and the biggest of their day. Through the acquisition of marine and pipeline divisions, the formation of a building division, and the company's first investments in real estate, B. Perini & Sons rapidly evolved into one of the largest diversified construction organizations and was renamed the Perini Corporation in 1954. Perini's reputation and its readiness to work in joint venture with other contractors fueled the expansion of operations through the 50s. Rod Monroe became the comptroller of the company in 1947.
Joint ventures, of course, spread the risk. You could get into big projects without taking it completely on your own. We worked mostly with Morris and Knudsen, Walsh out of New York, Kaiser, and those people, and it was reciprocal. We would be the sponsor of one project. They would be the sponsor of another project.
What differentiated Perini from other qualified contractors was its ability to attract and retain extraordinarily talented and resourceful managers and engineers.
Construction companies then, specifically, they all had the financing. They could all go out and buy construction equipment. So where was the difference between Perini and the other companies? And it had to be that it was the people. The people made the difference.
Inspired by the example of Bonfiglio, nurtured by the organization's leadership, and supported by expanded financial strength and capacity, their go-anywhere, do-anything attitude and ability enabled the company to construct projects throughout the world. With financial success came an increased responsibility to others less fortunate. The three brothers quietly contributed their time and financial resources to support many organizations dedicated to medical research, education, homeless children and the elderly, and community activities. Perini's ownership of the Braves baseball club provided many exciting moments, particularly when the Boston Braves were the National League's best in 1948. Unfortunately, they lost the World Series that year to the Cleveland Indians. But come 1957, 4 years after the franchise moved from Boston to Milwaukee, they won the World Championship. Teamwork enabled the Braves to be baseball's best. The company's success in both construction and real estate development can be traced to a similar spirit and drive for excellence. Land ownership and development had long been considered by the company as a hedge against inflation and construction cycles. It was a logical offshoot of their construction experience, and it did much to whet the entrepreneurial appetite of Lou Perini.
The field is so completely exciting that it's difficult to not think in figures that are almost astronomical. There is so much to do. There is such an intelligent approach to it. And all of it is so closely allied to those things that we know a great deal about that it's difficult to contemplate the possibility of not becoming one of the foremost companies in that field.
And Perini Land and Development Company became just that, one of the most successful real estate development companies in the United States. Recognized for creativity, respected for its integrity, and known for its ability to execute a broad spectrum of real estate ventures.
PL&D's experience turning common swampland into the economic hub of Palm Beach County in West Palm Beach, Florida, is the best example of vision and stubborn commitment to make good on a promise. In 1957, in partnership with investors and other developers, Perini proposed a planned community development called Palm Beach Lakes to be built on 4,500 acres of swampland within the city limits. To create suitable land for development, the partnership had to use dredge materials from Lake Mangonia as backfill for the marshy areas. Within a year of the startup of dredging operations, which cost as much as original land purchase price, $3.5 million, it was apparent that the other partners would not be able to meet the financial demands of the project. Determined that Perini would not be associated with a failed venture, the company allowed its partners to bow out gracefully and stayed on to handle the project alone. A Perini promise had been made to the people of West Palm Beach, and Lou Perini was not about to back down from that commitment, even though, in the early stages of development, it required an investment of nearly $30 million.
He wouldn't walk away, because we could have walked away from the bond and forfeited the bond, but then in the industry, you get the reputation that we walked away from a bond, and one of his greatest strengths as far as the bonding company is concerned and prides was that he wouldn't walk away from a project. And of course, in later years, the bonding company and the banks stayed behind us when we had some years that we needed the banks and the bonding company to stand behind us.
PL&D, together with the city of West Palm Beach, regarded the master plan as a dynamic blueprint, reshaping it and amending it as necessary in response to community concerns and market conditions. When Lou Perini died in 1972, the westward development was well on its way to becoming one of the great success stories of development history. And what if Lou Perini were alive today?
His reaction would be, well, I told you fellows that this is what we were going to get out of this. So it wouldn't surprise him that we went on and did what he felt could be done down here.
To fuel its anticipated growth, Perini offered shares of stock to the public in 1961. Early on, shares were traded over the counter, then through the American Stock Exchange, and today are listed on the New York Stock Exchange under the symbol PCR.
Domestic construction operations of the 60s found the company at work on the East Coast, for example, building the tallest building outside New York City, and responsible for the largest single highway contract that had been awarded in the United States. At the same time, on the West Coast, the company, alone or in joint venture with other contractors, was building major sections of the BART system for the cities of San Francisco and Oakland. and as a majority partner, built one of the first and most successful mixed-use urban redevelopment projects, the Golden Gateway Center. The oil crisis of the 70s motivated the company to re-enter the coal mining business in West Virginia. Once again, as during the war years, the company demonstrated the flexibility and financial strength to enter markets quickly. True to its tradition, Perini continued to pursue projects that others considered too difficult. Projects that relied on the company's capability and reputation for large-scale management programs. Projects of historic proportions. What may be considered one of the company's greatest adventures to date was its role as Perini Arctic Associates on the Trans-Alaska Pipeline. Overland, underground, spanning fast-moving waters, Perini's section of the work was the first to be completed. Seeking opportunities in new markets, the company acquired the Mardian Construction Company of Phoenix in 1974 and R.E. Daly & Company of Detroit in 1980. Both firms were solidly established in their markets as general contractors and construction managers. In addition, each strengthened the company in special ways. Mardian introduced PL&D to opportunities in the Southwest. And Daly's involvement in local and national construction industry affairs advanced the traditional efforts of Perini to play a role in directing the future of the industry. Like Perini, these two companies had grown from similar roots. Family-owned and operated, they knew the pride and value of a strong reputation. Beyond construction operations in North America, Perini International continued to explore construction opportunities abroad. Some were of historical importance, such as the fast-track construction of one of the most advanced air bases in the world in the Negev Desert for the U.S. Army Corps of Engineers, part of the Camp David Accords.
The company's building operations contributed to the growth and revitalization of cities and communities nationwide. The company's roots in the hospitality and gaming construction market can be traced to 1976, when New Jersey legalized gaming in Atlantic City. Over the next 15 years, Perini built more than half of the total number of hotel rooms in Atlantic City. Mardian Construction Company had been building in Las Vegas for over 8 years when it entered the Vegas hospitality and gaming market in earnest in 1984. Managing the construction of the expansion of the Tropicana Hotel. The new 22-story, 805-room tower and 5-acre water park transformed the aging property into a tropical oasis and repositioned the Trop to compete with existing and planned developments. Owners embraced Mardian's reliance on pre-construction planning and its collaborative, team-centered approach. Project to project, client confidence quickly evolved into lasting relationships built on trust. The real estate boom of the late 70s and early 80s ended in 1990, collapsing under the weight of the infamous savings and loan banking crisis. Over the next several years, the company's remaining real estate development projects were sold, and Perini Land and Development Company discontinued operations. Reflecting a revitalized attention to construction, Perini Corporation consolidated its nationwide building operations and resources in 1991 as Perini Building Company Incorporated. Perini Building Company strategically focused on specialized niche markets best suited to its experience. In addition, the company actively sought privately negotiated contracts with owners and developers, affording greater control on the construction process, especially during the pre-construction phase of projects. Milestone projects during the 1990s included the 30-story pyramid-shaped Luxor, the second largest hotel in the United States, in 1993. America West Arena, now U.S. Airways Center, home of the Phoenix Suns, and the Ronald Reagan Building and International Trade Center in Washington, D.C. Throughout its history, Perini Building Company has prospered from being in the right place at the right time. When the United States Congress passed the Indian Gaming Regulatory Act in 1988, it created a nationwide market for Native American hospitality and gaming developments. As pioneers in the market, Perini worked closely with tribal councils and their development partners to create multifaceted destination resorts that rivaled those of Las Vegas and Atlantic City. In 1997, a consortium of investors, led by long-standing joint venture partner Ron Tudor, purchased over 9 million shares of common stock, reducing the company's dependence on bank debt to fund its core operations. These core operations included Perini Building Company, Perini Civil, and Perini Management Services, the successor company to Perini International. Today, civil operations focus on the repair and replacement of infrastructure in the Northeast and Mid-Atlantic states. Perini Management Services, Inc., or PMSI, pursues construction opportunities with the U.S. military, government agencies, utilities, and multinational corporations in the United States and in select overseas locations.